Good morning, everyone, and a big warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us this morning on our webinar, Why and How to Implement a Whitespace Sales and Marketing Strategy. During this webinar, our panel of speakers will explain the business benefits associated with developing a Whitespace strategy and give you some sound advice on how to do this well. As a thank you for joining us on our webinar today, all attendees will receive our practical e-guide entitled Why and How to Implement a Whitespace Strategy, which is packed full of useful hints, tips and ideas on how to bring your Whitespace strategy to life. Our speakers today are Darren Spence, Managing Director of Boost Technology Group, David Turner, Senior Director EMEA from Oracle NetSuite, and James Ward, Managing Director of Clientshare. We will hear from each of them in turn today, but I'd like to start by introducing Darren Spence, Managing Director of Boost Technology Group. Darren, today we're talking about the Whitespace opportunity. To get us started, perhaps you could explain what Whitespace is and why resellers should look to implement a Whitespace sales and marketing strategy.
Sure, thanks Lisa, and welcome everyone to our webinar. So I like to think of Whitespace as opportunity gaps. It's the products and services in a reseller's or vendor's portfolio that haven't yet been sold to a particular customer. And I think the reason why it's important to really think about the white space is because if you can get better at selling more things to the existing customer, there's many benefits that come with that. We see a lot of partners up and down the country, and if you look at this, some of the general trends that we've seen, but also that are being reported by the likes of CRN, I saw a report recently that the top 100 VARs have seen collective revenues increase by 13%, and yet the collective net profitability is down 62% to just 1.8% margin. So MSPs, SIs, resellers, call them what you want, these frontline sales organizations are doing well at selling, increasing their sales, but they're suffering with either high cost of sales or their margins are a lot higher than they need to be. So their profitability is really under pressure. If you then look at a white space strategy, it's a way of getting a much better return out of your existing assets, whether they be salespeople or your customers. And that's really what the white space is about. And if you just look at some of the research from the likes of market makers, they state that you're 10 times more likely to be able to sell something to an existing customer than to win a new customer. So there's many benefits about focusing more of your investment into selling more products and services to your existing customers. But it's not just the benefit for the partner. This is something that customers want as well. So we surveyed 50 IT directors recently and asked them a whole range of questions about how they like to work with partners. And every single one of them said that they want to work with fewer partners. Working with multiple partners takes up their time. They also realize, or they state that partners don't take the time to really understand their business. So their desired state is to work with far fewer partners and work with partners that can recommend insightful solutions that fix their problems. They also want simplified billing. So the fewer partners that they're working with means that there's fewer invoices to process, which saves them money. So customers really want solutions to their problems. So it's beneficial for partners, it's beneficial for the customers, but also if you think about it from a reseller's perspective, if you are successful at selling more products and services to the same customers, you've got less competition because the product lines that you're selling won't have as many competitors. So if there's less competition, it means you're much more influential in that customer. If you're more influential and you've got less competition, then over time you should see your margins increase on some of those niche add-on products and services. And also, I think if you think about the cost to actually sell to an existing customer, it's a lot less than the cost to sell to a new customer. You've already got the sales investment there. You've already got some form of marketing collaterals and service portfolio. So you're not actually looking to invest heavily in a new sales infrastructure. And what I'm seeing of all the partners that I'm talking with is that a lot of resellers are hiring new people at the moment, which is great and has great benefits to the economy, but hiring new salespeople that ultimately are sent out into the field to sell just one or two products is a very expensive strategy. If you look at the sales team that you've already got, whether you're selling to end customers or you're selling to partners, if you're a vendor or a distributor, if you can make it easier for your salespeople to sell more of your portfolio to your existing customers, then there's no need to go and invest anywhere near the level of costs that you need to. So by doing that, we're going to address the two core problems that I'm seeing, which is one is increased costs because people are spending more acquiring new customers, and the other one is this idea about this reducing margin. Like I said, 1.8% is the average operating margin now for a typical frontline sales organization. So a white space strategy addresses both of those issues, and also it's better for the salespeople because they're selling more products and services. They've got much better customer attach rates, and it's a win-win for the customer as well.
Lovely, thank you, Darren. What do you think are the key things that need to be considered when designing a white space sales and marketing strategy?
Okay, so I think there's kind of 7. I think the first thing is to really understand what your desired state is. And a desired state, in my opinion, it shouldn't just be, we want to sell 10 products to all of our customers. I think you've got to start every single white space or any sales and marketing strategy with the end goal in mind. So if you're running an MSP or reseller, or you're running a vendor team, then ultimately you need to make sure that your salespeople are selling the products and services that you need them to sell. So for example, if one of your ambitions is to develop much stronger annuities from managed services or SaaS solutions or devices as a service, then your priority should always be to make sure that you're equipping the sales and marketing team with the tools that they have to make sure they can sell your primary or core portfolio. So in this case, annuity. So before you do any attached selling, let's make sure that they're selling the right things first. So your desired state must align to the business strategy. Once that's done, then you can start looking at, okay, we want to make sure that we are improving the yield per customer, whether that's doubling it or increase it by a third, and also that you're achieving a much higher sales output per salesperson. So once again, you're not having to supplement salespeople's underperformance with new salespeople. You're actually helping equip the salespeople with the tools and the skills that they have to improve that. So desired state is essential to really understand what it is that you're building and why. The second thing is then to look at your current state. So how does that current state perform in association with your desired state? And you can look at some very key metrics around, attach rates for salespeople or time to value for a particular customer. So there's a number of things that you can look at, but you need to make sure you're clear on what your current state is. The third thing is business intelligence. It's critical that if you're going to run a successful white space strategy, that you're working with good quality data that's come out of not just your account system, but your CRM system as well. So you need to have access to good quality data. The fourth thing is your proposition, and specifically, have you structured your proposition in a way that it's easy for customers to move through that journey? We see it all the time where, a lot of websites, whilst they might seem logical for the actual partner, from a customer perspective, it's sometimes quite hard to find something. And when they do find the product or service that they might need, there's many other products and services that they could be attaching that aren't obvious from that website experience. So, the proposition should be very much around connected journeys. So if someone buys Office 365, for example, then it makes total sense to start talking about migration services, security services, email archiving services, and so on and so forth. So how can we make sure that we're structuring our marketing messages in a logical way that customers can really interact with? The fifth one is people. So, the changing role of the CIO means that our salespeople need to be much better and much more business savvy to have better conversations with their customers. I always think that a good salesperson is someone that's relentlessly curious. The more questions that you ask, the more likely you are to actually get to the strategic priorities. So how are our salespeople performing and what training do they need? The other one, the sixth one, is around the management process. So the key to any strategy, in this case it's about white space, is to make sure the management team and the leadership team are fully on board with this and able to measure and implement the strategy as well. So how are they actually monitoring their salespeople? And the last one is around technology. So specifically, what technology can you use to bring this to life. So, you know, our role in this, the role that Boost could play is certainly helping with current state analysis. So we would typically come in and help with the people, process and proposition side to help organizations understand where they are on that side. But once that's done, also the technology is absolutely critical.
Okay. Thank you, Darren. This is now a great opportunity to bring you into the conversation, David. In the context of whitespace, what makes Oracle NetSuite so special?
Thanks, Lisa. So I'll just give you a really quick sort of overview of what NetSuite is, how we work with IT services companies, and then in the context of whitespace, the kind of advantages we bring. NetSuite was actually pretty much the original cloud software company. Started about 20 years ago with a vision to build a single business system that could run any small, fast-growing or global company from end to end. So covering everything from your core accounting, finance, procurement, back office functions, right through areas like professional services, automation, and your operations, through to sales and CRM, and right up to e-commerce. So what we've created is a single platform which runs your whole business and gives you the visibility and control that you know, every decision maker kind of craves and many struggle to get. You get this real-time single version of the truth. And what that leads to is kind of intelligence-led decision making. And we're particularly designed, that system is particularly designed for businesses that are changing rapidly and growing, evolving, moving into new markets and so on. And when we look at the IT services market, we have many hundreds of companies, customers in the IT services market. And what we see there is that they are, just as Darren said, they're facing all these challenges of decreasing margin, increased competition, commoditization of a lot of products and services, and so they're looking for new revenue streams. They're often moving away from maybe a single focus on only products or only services to actually a more complex business model that combines products and services, upfront pricing and subscription-based licensing and all those sort of things. And so their businesses are becoming more complex, but the margins are also going down. And so what they need is to simplify their business processes and reduce costs. And that's exactly what NetSuite helps them to do. We help them to manage that complex business process very simply, give them complete visibility of what's happening in their business. And in particular, give them this 360-degree view of the customer that everybody kind of wants. You know, so you have a view of your customer from the first time you ever sent them an email, or the first time they came onto your website, right through to the whole sales journey that you went with them, and then, you know, the products that they've bought over their lifetime. And you can also see right into, you know, the finance back end to see how well do they pay, how frequently do they, or how quickly do they pay, you know, have there been any issues in that sort of area. And therefore you get a really good view of how profitable any particular customer is. And that is, you know, really important when you're then looking to identify white space opportunities. So number one, you've got a view of your whole customer base and all of the products and services that they've ever consumed. And that obviously immediately gives you a view of the white space. You know, what are the bits they haven't bought? You can also very quickly and easily identify what have other customers done, that kind of Amazon thing of customers who bought X, you know, typically also buy Y. You can create those sort of processes very quickly to surface the opportunities, and also push those out to your salespeople, because your salespeople are going to be using this system as well. You know, even as I say, in this more complex world where people are typically now bundling products and services and intellectual property and as a service models you can identify that very simply within NetSuite, and you can do that kind of in real time. Because you're getting that complete view of the customer, you can also see, well, do I want to do business with these customers? Because just because there might be a white space there you know, there might be certain groups of customers or certain individual customers that actually, because they pay really late or because they use your service desk constantly and are a drain on your services personnel, you know, you might decide actually they're not really that profitable for us. They might not be the sort of people we want to offer either any more products or a specific service that we think might actually be too kind of complex for them or whatever. So you can get this view of what, not only where is the white space, but which are the areas of my customer base I want to focus on that are going to give me the most profitable business. And that, you know, that's very powerful in terms of being a little bit more sophisticated in how you undertake a white space kind of program. Once you then decide to do that and you've identified where the opportunities are, which are the customers you're going to target and what you're going to target them with NetSuite, you've then got all the tools to actually create that campaign. So everything from, you know, creating the marketing campaign and pushing that out, pushing those opportunities and all of the information out to your sales team, and then actually monitoring your sales team and making sure that they are actually executing on those programs, which is also a powerful thing. Anyone who runs sales teams will know you can create the best campaigns and materials and everything in the world, but if the sales team aren't following up on the opportunities or aren't, you know, picking up the phone and calling the customers or whatever, then, you know, it's not going to succeed. So you've also got that visibility, not just of your customer base, but also of your own sales team and your marketing operations and everything. So you can see how effective particular tactics are, but also, as I say, make sure that they are being followed up and that everything's kind of going in the right direction. So, you know, there's that idea, as I say, that you can see all the opportunities, but you can also identify which of the opportunities you really want to take. I think just one other point I was going to make, actually, just thinking about when you were talking, Darren, about the cost of attracting new business versus existing business. Something that's really changed things, and I'm a marketing guy, in the last year or so is GDPR. And GDPR means it's actually getting more and more expensive to acquire new customers because of the whole issue of, you know, you can't call, you can't contact people who you maybe don't have a relationship with. The great thing when you've got a customer relationship is, of course, you've got that permission already and you've got that opportunity in. So I think this white space strategy is actually increasingly important today. And so, as I say, just summarizing, what NetSuite gives you to sort of support you in that process is the complete visibility across your business in real time, the control to know what's going on, the ability to automate as much of the process as you can as well, and that ability to not just identify where white space opportunities are, but to understand which of those are going to be most attractive and are going to lead to kind of sustainable, predictable, and profitable growth.
Thank you, David. What advice would you give to resellers looking to get started with their white space strategy from a technology perspective?
Well, I think, you know, Darren's points there, the kind of seven aspects of a white space strategy, highlighted a number of them, and, you know, about having the right data, having the right processes in place, and of course having the right technology. I think, you know, they need to look at their own kind of business and think and work out, have they got the data that can really support a sophisticated and sustainable white space strategy, and can they make those intelligent kind of business decisions, and then can they support those campaigns? And, you know, we find a lot of services companies struggle with that, because as they've grown, they've acquired multiple systems, or they've integrated systems, and that doesn't always give them the ability to get good visibility across the business. So we actually have teams of kind of analysts, what we call the value management team, who actually work with our prospects and customers to help them assess their kind of situation, the systems and processes they have in place, and look at the technology supporting that, and how that is, you know, whether it's fit for purpose or where the opportunities are to improve it. So something we're offering today, suggesting for people who are on the webinar or listening into this, is that we'll offer a kind of free evaluation of your existing technology to see how that does match to what we see as best practice. So it's like a free value assessment delivered by our value management team. It's relatively straightforward. It's just we don't have to come in and crawl all over your systems. They can spend like an hour or so on the phone, just talk through what your existing systems and processes are, and then create a report and just indicate what we see as best practice and where the opportunities are to improve your technology and your systems and processes today.
Thank you, David. Darren, coming back to you for just a moment. Earlier, you talked about equipping sales teams with the skills and tools that they need to help them be more effective when developing a white space strategy. Could you elaborate on that a little?
Yes, I think there's three things here, actually. I think one, when you look at sales teams specifically, like I said earlier, the role of a CIO is changing, or has changed dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. They're business people first. They're there to advise the board on how the board can deliver against its business strategy. So, if you want to be a lot more strategic with your customer, which is the only really way that you're going to actually have a successful cross and upsell strategy, you need to make sure your salespeople have the right skills to ask the right questions and to operate at a much more senior level. I mean, like I said, I don't ever expect a salesperson to really understand the overarching strategy of an organization, because often those conversations are private between the board members. But certainly when it comes to strategic priorities, I do think it's reasonable for salespeople to be able to have senior conversations, and certainly our training operation gets involved in a lot of those. So equipping the sales teams with the skills and the behaviours that they need to operate at a much more strategic level is key. So that's the first thing, is around the sales skills. The other thing is around the proposition itself. I mentioned earlier about having connected journeys. And I think the part is that sometimes lacks with traditional training programs is that there's not really enough attention, if any attention, given to the actual proposition of the VAR or the MSP, or even the vendor or disty. I think that salespeople should be able to know exactly the whole business, how it's all structured, how it's all connected. So when they are starting to have a conversation with a customer, they can much more confidently talk about the whole proposition and how it's all linked together. So proposition training is essential. And we bring that to life with games, often where we actually have physical games that we get the sales and marketing teams to play together. The last thing is around the collaboration. I think having the skills and the behaviours to talk with sales with customers is great, and the proposition is obviously key. But ultimately, this is actually about a collaboration between the sales organisation and the end customer, whether that be an end client organisation or a reseller, if you're a vendor or distributor. So, that collaboration piece, where you're having multiple conversations within your own organisation, so multi-stakeholder, so the salesperson, the managing director, the head of service, whatever those different key stakeholders are, with all the opposite numbers in your end clients. So trying to build this multi-level stakeholder engagement, which is much better for the customer, because they have a much broader understanding of the organisation. And it's much better for the sales organisation as well, because if something changes, a salesperson might leave. You don't lose the customer automatically. So, helping the salespeople to be a lot more collaborative is absolutely essential. Which is that's the reason why we're so keen to work with the likes of James from Clientshare. But I'll leave him to tell his own story.
Lovely. Thank you, Darren. James, this may now be a good opportunity for you to talk about Clientshare and how you're enabling sales teams with their white space strategy.
Sure. So firstly, thank you everyone for putting the time aside to listen to this, and thanks for the invite, Darren. So I suppose the place that I'd start is basically that everything we hear about companies talking about their business, we hear so often that it's not about their customers. We hear companies talking about their products, their price, their service, and it's all very much me. It's a very sort of dare I say, selfish view of the world. And our view is, Clientshare, we don't really care what you sell. We don't really care what your services are, on the basis that if you look at the IT marketplace and the VAR marketplace and the technology marketplace, or the distributor marketplace, pretty much take this the right way, but you're all doing the same thing. So the one thing that stands you apart from your competition is relationship and the way that you engage with your client. That's what we firmly believe. And Clientshare was set up with a very simple purpose. It was to improve the relationship between buyers and suppliers. And the reason why, as you see on the screen in front of you, is we're in the age of experience. If you think about the consumer marketplace and how you make buying decisions as a consumer, it's not about price, it's about experience. Why have Amazon grown so quickly? Why do Apple still maintain a huge price differential to their competitors? It's all about experience. And at the moment, the B2B marketplace is actually behind the B2C marketplace. And the best IT companies or the best VAR companies that we see and work with are the ones that have really understood this. And they recognize that actually it's not their ability to put a great price or a great service on the table, because everyone is doing that. It's their ability to make the customer, as Darren said earlier, come back to them time and time again because of the people and because of the relationship that they've got. So 10, 15 years ago, we would have called it relationship. Today, it's actually CX, it's experience. So if you haven't got a world-class experience in place with your customer, there's a risk. And the reason is that the way that business works has changed fundamentally. Now, dare I say, if you go back to solution selling in the 90s, or even services selling, where people were servitizing their products and technology in the first decade of the century, then there was a real key message around if you could servitize a product or a service, you had competitive advantage. Well, everyone has caught you up now. So again, the competitive advantage today is all about experience, and business has changed, and you need to recognize that the way that you sold in the past is not going to be something which is going to give you competitive advantage today. Profit and margin sit in CX. And if we take a look at, if we go on to the next one, and I'd like you to think about, basically, Lisa, you can just move on to the next slide. So if you can think about how you as a business win new business. Now think about brand new clients you win, and think about how hot, how on fire that business relationship is when you win a new contract. It's amazing. You've got the A-team in place, you've got brilliant customer relationships, you know the right stakeholders, and you've got this amazing view of a partnership about how you and your customer can go out and do something amazing for their customer. But now think about that same relationship 12, 18 months in, or even 3 or 6 months in. That hot relationship has gone cold. And when something goes cold, you're at risk. And what happens all the time is your customers, certainly in the IT marketplace, will be saying, well, we spoke about a partnership, but it never really materialized. We spoke about how we were going to be closer and better than any relationship we've ever had before. It sort of happened, but it hasn't really materialized. Or we've spoken about the innovation we're going to bring to market. It's sort of there, but it hasn't happened. So that whole mindset of how can you keep your relationship on fire in the way that you win a new business contract through to existing contracts is something that you have to get in place. Darren and David have spoken very clearly, articulately about the opportunity when you get cross-selling and white space selling right. But our view here is that the relationship is what actually enables it. If we go on to the next view, then we see when we talk to our customers, they tell us that there's a few things that make a fundamental difference to why you're going to be successful. And this is backed up by Gartner. So Gartner will tell you that, look, it's not about your service. It's not about your products or your price. It's all about relationship. It's customer experience. And what makes this even more sort of galling in the market, Darren spoke about the low margins that you make. Accenture will tell you that I think only about 20% of customers, 20% of organizations are actually taking advantage of this. Most companies remain in the same place selling on price, products or service, because that is their key focus, because that's how it's been for so long. So what do our customers tell us really matter in a business relationship? And Lisa, if we can take a look at the next page, they'll tell us that companies like Apple get it right. They'll tell us that companies like Southwest Airlines get it right. And then I'm going to give you a UK example, an organization called Guidant Global. Now, they're not an IT reseller. They're not a VAR, but they do supply into the IT services marketplace. They supply labor into it. And they are passionate about customer experience and employee experience. And they've decided that if they can put the customer in the heart of everything they do in terms of their business relationships in terms of the way that they engage with the customer from an exec level down to an operations level, that's where they'll get price advantage. That's where they'll be able to retain and grow clients. And some of their largest customers are companies that have the same procurement people that IT companies will be dealing with, the same endpoint buyers, but they focus everything on relationship. And that's what gives them the opportunity. So they're not one of the 8 in 10 companies that are failing about business relationships and white space selling. They're one of the 2 in 10 companies, 1 in 5 companies who recognize that customer experience and relationship is what's going to unlock white space selling. So what actually enables it, if we go on to the next, the penultimate one, the thing that we believe enables it is the pillars of customer experience. And they're very different in the consumer world as to where they are in the business to business world. And these are the 5 things that Clientshare is built around. And these are the 5 things that we firmly believe will make a fundamental difference to your success selling into the IT marketplace. And the first is community. So how deep and wide does your community go? Far too many companies pay lip service, real lip service to a community. They almost pretend that they've got relationships when in reality they don't. So making sure that that community isn't just a small community, it's a deep and wide community is critical. And it's not just I've got an account plan that says I know some people, it's I've got proper relationships. The next thing that your customers, we believe, will be screaming out for will be insight. And it's not just insight on what you've sold. So this is the level of what we sold you this month. This is what the outlook is for the next quarter. It's delivering an extra level of insight on it, the trends in terms of what's happening. The added insight on what you're selling really unlocks value for customers, and not enough buyers get this type of information. So if you can get a deep and wide community and give real insight as opposed to just management information on what you're doing for your customers, you are standing apart from your competition. And this isn't just information, this is customer experience in a B2B environment. The next is innovation. If I could, well, one of those ones where I'd be ridiculously rich if I could, get a pound for every time someone said innovation is important. And it is critical innovation. But what we see time and time again is people getting innovation wrong. Innovation isn't just something that you say you want to do. It's something you need to prove and demonstrate continually. And innovation sometimes can just be contractual innovation and service innovation. It doesn't have to be the new latest technology that's flying off the shelf. But don't just talk about doing it, demonstrate it and prove to your customer that you're continually delivering innovation for them. Now, the other 2 things that we think will make a difference in white space selling are when your customer turns to you and says, do you know what? Transparency is important. You are easy to work with. And being easy to work with is almost like having permission to go and sell more to a customer. And so regularly we see companies say, actually, we've got 10 other things that we want to sell to a customer. Therefore, we think that we've got the God-given right to go and sell those things to an organization because we've got them in our locker. That doesn't give you the right to sell them. If your customer thinks that you're easy to work with, transparent, and they understand how your organization works, the conversations about buy more from us and sell more to them are natural, easy conversations to have. So until you've got an easy business relationship in place, then we believe that you don't have the right to go and sell more effectively. So do your beautiful basics, get the basics right so you're easy to work with, and then demonstrating more services and upselling to customers into the white space becomes so much easier. And last but not least is reliability. In your marketplace, the chances are you will do what you do in terms of service delivery on time, on budget, on a regular basis. And that's why you're probably all in a top right quadrant for your services. And fundamentally, you can be in a position that if you get your reliability right with your customers, it makes you a trustworthy company. And it's not just delivering your services, but it's if you say you're going to do something outside of your day-to-day service, then do it, and do it consistently and reliably. So those 5 CX pillars are what we see as being the most important thing when it comes to CX in a business relationship. And you'll see here that none of those have anything to do with the VAR, the MSP, the IT reseller marketplace. None of those have anything to do with your price, your product, or your service. So last but not least, shamelessly, a little bit about Clientshare. Look, our view is very simple. And Darren mentioned technology earlier. Obviously, David's particularly hot on this one 360 view and technology being critical. Clientshare's got a very simple purpose. Transform the business relationship between you and your customer. Because if you genuinely believe that customer experience and business relationship is critical, then do something about it. Don't pay lip service to it. So what is Clientshare? It's an online, easy to use digital community where you and your customer come together to manage the moments that matter. So it's somewhere where you manage business reviews, share content, find contractual data, give feedback to your clients. You can integrate things such as Power BI and management information tools. But ultimately, it's one place, one view that gives you everything that happens between you and your customer. And whilst most organizations are investing heavily in internal tools that help them get their own internal view of the world, the smartest and the best organizations we see are ones that are investing in tools that enables their customers to come to them and say, we love working with you. You're transparent, you're reliable, we can find the information we want. We've got an effective community, we get innovation from you, and we've got contract insight in one simple, easy to use place. So let me summarize. If you believe that price, products and service are your differentiator, then we boldly think that you will struggle to sell into white space. Really struggle to sell effectively into white space. You'll do it more by chance than by a clear strategy. If you believe that relationship and experience are critical, then white space selling is something that you should embrace for all the reasons that Darren and David have spoken about earlier. It's a phenomenal opportunity. All the new business salespeople get all the kudos these days. I don't get it. I really don't get it. When the people managing existing accounts and growing existing accounts are the ones that are generally delivering the profit and the growth to companies. So there you go. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, James. This concludes our session today on building a successful white space strategy. Thank you, Darren, David and James for your time and sharing your insights with us. If anybody has any questions for our speakers today, please let us know in the Q&A box. They will be happy to answer anything around proposition and connected journeys, marketing, people enablement and sales management embedding as examples, plus anything else that you'd like to ask them. I think whilst people are reaching for their keyboards, if I can just kind of summarise also about next steps, just whilst we're just at this stage. So we've covered a lot today, and I think we probably could have talked a lot more because it's quite a big subject when you really get into it, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. But if anyone is interested in taking the first step, then we're offering a what we call a triple P analysis, which essentially is where we can come in, look at your people, processes and proposition. And if we can get commitment by the 18th of April, then that would be free of charge. That normally carries a charge of $3,500. With regards to Oracle NetSuite, you heard David mention they're offering this value assessment, almost this kind of situational analysis at the moment as well. So you can certainly contact us and I can put you in touch with David. And James, although I don't think he actually mentioned it, as part of this webinar, there's also a free CX assessment that James and his team will do as well. So, I think the first stage really is to get in touch and, if there's anything that we can do to help you get on this journey and really highlight a critical path for you, then we'll be more than happy to help. So after this call, we're going to send out an email to all the people that registered. And also I'm going to ask your permission if you're happy to be contacted by David and James, because GDPR, you mentioned, David mentioned it earlier, it's very difficult for us just to loop in other people unless we've got prior permission. So please let us know if you're happy for us to share your data, and if you are happy, there's lots of other insights that we're also prepared to give back to you as well. Oracle NetSuite have got a whole library of assets that are relevant to this space, and James has as well. So we just need your permission after this call. But once again, on behalf of David and James, we'll say thank you very much for taking the time to join us on this webinar and contribute. And for all the attendees, thank you very much for taking the time, and I hope that you got something out of it. And please get in touch if we can help. Thank you, Darren, David and James for taking part in our webinar today, and to everyone for attending. We hope you found it useful, and for any questions or queries, please email contact me at boost-performance.co.uk or visit our website www.technology.co.uk/whitespace. Thank you all for attending today, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.